What is going on, all my Rainmakers fans? It is the Rainmakers Report for the Scottish Open, and I am Jason Roslin, or find me on Twitter at DFSGolfer23, and I am joined by my buddy and co-host Byron at The Model Maniac, and we're going to try and break it down as good as we did last week for the John Deere Classic. We highlighted the winner in Sepp Straka as one of our optimal plays. So we're going to go ahead and try to recreate that. And Byron, I know he was a big part of your outright card as well, not just your Rainmakers lineup. So we are all in on Ironman Sepp Straka. What do you call him? Diet Coke guy?
Diet Coke Ironman. Yeah, just like those aluminum cans kind of all came together and assembled, and off we went. You know, the things were firing up. Those thrusters on Sunday were, man, that was something. What a great round.
It sure was. And now I will say, I had Cameron Young, as we talked about. I'm like, dude, we got to put him as captain. We got to stick with him. Ended up paying out, for the most part, T6. I thought on Sunday it was going to be him and Sepp. I really thought they were going to go toe-to-toe. Then on that ninth hole, Young stuffed one. Maybe it was one of the holes where Young stuffed one and missed that shorty after Straka hit a bomb. And I'm like, oh, no, it's over. We're done. We're done here. Maybe we'll see it next week. But a really exciting week this week, nonetheless. We've got a dual week on the PGA Tour for the Rainmakers. So we're going to get like $450,000 in prizing coming out this week, Byron. Is that guy you excited?
Yeah. I mean, 125 of the 208 guys that I have in the Rainmaker model they got power rankings this week, which is not often, right? So going to be some interesting price movements. It's just a great week to just have tons of cards in your portfolio by now. So
it really is. And this is, the weeks, of course, that collectors like you and myself have been waiting for, being able to utilize all those cards. We're going to talk about both tournaments here, and we're going to preview the week on Rainmakers. First, the Scottish Open, $275,000 total prize pool for that contest this week. Really cool. 1,000 at the core, 2,000 at the rare, 10K at the elite, 5K at legendary, and 10K at Rainmaker going to that slate. So pretty balanced pricing. And the reason I say that is because when we take a look at the Barbasol, it's actually got the same exact first place prizes. And honestly, Byron, I love that so much because some of these cards that we haven't gotten a good amount of utility on, we're going to get some really good utility on this week. I mean, hey, you could make a lineup with Harry Higgs, Austin Smotherman, and more and win 10K off it this week. So we will talk a bit more about that in just a little bit. And, of course, we do have a UFC fight night this week, $150,000 in the total prize pool this week. Top heavy again, as we alluded to last week for UFC. $1,000 to first, 2 to second, 5 to elite, 5 to legendary, and 10,000 at that Rainmaker level. So a lot going on here this week. One other thing going on before we get into the actual slate breakdowns of the PGA, the crafting version, the crafting recipes version 2 has come out this week. They will drop tomorrow, and I'll have a full article breaking down what you can expect to see out of each crafting pack. I will tell you, Byron, just a little bit of a tidbit. The Rainmaker tier, not bad, and it kind of filters on throughout. I would say when I looked at it, there was John Rahm in there. There were a couple of other star-studded guys, a couple of other duds as well. And when I say duds, probably not going to get a ton of utility out of them. Yeah. Still, overall, if you're looking to upgrade your portfolio, this is a good way to do it. Again, look for my article breaking down this fully tomorrow on the Lucky Traders site. And the crafting recipes will go live at 5 p.m. tomorrow. Expect my article out before that. Okay, so now we've gotten out of our housekeeping items. Let's go ahead and start our breakdown of this week. First, the Scottish Open played at the Renaissance Club. And Byron, have you ever been over to Scotland, played? I know you're from South Africa and it's not close to Scotland, but maybe you're a world traveler like me and have made it over there.
In fact, the funniest thing is I've actually only ever been to Germany for like 18 hours on the layover on the way to America.
Okay.
And that's the only other country outside of South Africa and the States I've been in. So I'm kind of like a home guy. I don't really go too far, but all over America I've been. So
gotcha. So you ready for this little story then about the Scottish Open? I don't know if you know this, right? So years ago, the competitor site to the one we play Rainmakers on hosted a live final in Scotland where they took us over there for a full week. And we got to play Glen Eagles, which is the Ryder Cup course. We got to play Gullin, a couple of other courses as well. And we got to play Dundonald Links, which at the time was hosting the Scottish Open. So it was a really cool experience. I ended up finishing in second there, but I fell in love with the country, just everything about it. So this tournament is a little near and dear to my heart. I do love watching it. And the Renaissance Club has certainly brought up the prestige of the event. It's been held here for 5 years now. This is year 5. Par 70, 7,300 yards. But, Byron, before we go any further, the par 70 is a little weird, isn't it?
It is weird. And there's 3 par 5s and 5 par 3s and just a whole bunch of random holes on this course. So random walls everywhere and whatever. So it's fun. I do like having a bit of a different thing to look at and different stuff to kind of handicap going into the week compared to the United States courses.
Yeah, and we get 42 events a year, let's say, roughly. And of those 42 events, we're going to get a standard setup, whether it's par 70, 71, or 72. It's going to have mostly the exact same amount. At 72, we're going to get 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s. This one, I like the difference. It's a par 70, so you think they're bringing more par 4s, but there's not. You get the 3 par 5s and the 5 par 3s. So what that brings to is a ton of variability in terms of scoring. Last year, of course, the other element to this is the weather. When the winds are howling, this golf course, as you can see in our beautiful picture in the background, is right on the coast in North Berwick. When the wind is howling here, the scores get tough. Last year, -7 was the winner. Year before that, -18. Year before that, -11. Year before that, -22. So we've really seen it every other year kind of go back and forth in terms of the scoring. Average winner, -15. Driving accuracy, very tough. But again, this was taken last year when the winds were the highest. Greens in regulation, 60%. I'd expect with normal winds, somewhere around 55 and 70% in terms of driving accuracy in greens and regulation. But with so much variability in terms of weather, this course, I really think you've got to be good at all parts of your game. I looked at the strokes gained that we got from last year. Everybody in the top 7 gained strokes in every category, Byron. So not really a driver heavy, not really an iron heavy course.
Yeah, it's just, I think that's the thing what happens when it gets windy, right? You're gonna hit a good drive that's going to take care of something for you. But if you hit a bad approach shot, you're going to have to scramble. You're going to have to putt. You're going to rely on every aspect of your game. And I do think that's going to be a big part of it this week.
Yeah, it sure is. And now part of our premium tools here at Lucky Trader, one of the ones that I like the best here is this weekly value metrics. This gives you the top 10 players playing in the current week. Now, because we have 2 tournaments this week, I will show you what the top 10 board looks like for the Barbasol. But first, we're going to start with breaking down the Scottish Open here. So, speaking of Scottish Open, Scotty Scheffler, man, his prices are going back up, which is kind of surprising to me. You could get an elite card of Scotty Scheffler's for like $480 roughly at the beginning of this week. A rare card for under $100. Core card around 20. Byron, what do you attribute the prices for Scotty Scheffler going up right now?
Well, yeah, we got what? Now we can basically, now how Rory's been playing lately, we can say we kind of got the big 2.5. We'll give Scotty like 1.5 and call Rory and Rahm half a point. But Rahm's not playing this week. So now we've only got really 2 of those 3. And we typically see these prices jump up a little bit relative to what they were 2 or 3 weeks leading into the event before majors. It will go up, right? So he's playing this week. I think everyone's kind of trying to get a double whammy on him, whereas Rahm's price, I think, is probably a good time to get on that now, because I think when he plays next week, people will realize that, and off we go. So, yeah, I think these majors kind of get things going, and I'm not entirely sure how he's going to play this week, because I think putting, we've always relied on putting a lot, and he doesn't necessarily do it that well, but he's always, premium elite ball striker.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. His form right now, I think it's like something about 15 starts all in the top 15 or 12 straight starts. Something crazy. I know he's working on 6 straight top 5s. Maybe that's why he's the prices that we're seeing. Yeah. Obviously, if you invested in Scotty Scheffler at the beginning of the season, sure, the prices have come down a bit. I'm not going to lie, but the return on investment has been as big as anybody. probably far better now that I think about it because of how many times he's ended up in the optimal lineup setting, especially with how many guys end up missing the cut and all that. So, yeah, no surprise, I guess, to see Scottie Scheffler's prices maintain their value and, as we just alluded to, maybe even go up a little bit, especially when John Rahm not in the field. Other guys, Rory McIlroy, maybe seeing his prices go up a little bit. Saw his elite, you could get it around like 280, 290 at the beginning of last week. Patrick Cantlay playing some great golf, also played well here last year. Victor Hovland's entered Schauffele. Matt Fitzpatrick. It really feels like an elevated event, Byron. Not this year, unfortunately, which is kind of weird. But it does go to show how many guys like to come over for this 2-week span. They go to Wimbledon or whatever they do, those spring breakers. But they do like coming over here for 2 straight weeks. So we've got Wyndham Clark, Tyrell Hatton, and Sam Burns rounding out the top 10 that are here. A couple of these guys not playing well, like Max Homa. Sam Burns maybe not playing his best. But nonetheless, this is our top 10 board. Other than Scottie Scheffler, who's the first guy you're going to turn to on this board this week?
Patrick Cantlay, to me. I think that value there just south of Rory's price tag. I've got him ranked ahead of him there anyway. So, as we've spoken about in many, many pods prior to this, I've got a lot of him already. And he's provided you pretty good results too. He hasn't had that win yet, which I think it's around the corner, man. This is kind of that period of time where right before the Tour Championship, old Cantlay starts ramping up a little bit. So we'll see what he can get up to.
He sure does. You're absolutely right. Now, the only problem I have with him is he typically doesn't play well in tough conditions. However, a 4th place finish here last year when clearly this course was playing difficult kind of gets away from that. Plus, he's playing some really good golf. Now, his stuff on the side with what's going on in terms of his PGA Tour policy review board position and the politics going on behind that, I don't think it's creeping into his game. He loves the almost playing the villain, if you will. He went through that period of slow play where he's like, hey, I'll just embrace this and see what happens. And man, I've always been a fan of Patrick Cantlay. So I totally agree. Scotty and Patrick, if you got their cards, put them together this week. Yeah. Number 3, I'm going to go a little bit off the board for maybe our third guy, Matt Fitzpatrick. Finally starting to get a little bit of a groove going. 3 top 14s here at this event, has not missed a cut in all 4 years. It's moved to the Renaissance Club. So I think looking at his prices, I expect him to play in as many events as Scotty and as Patrick going forward. He's going to play in the Ryder Cup, so they'll match up there. I think we're going to get some good utility out of Fitzy, and we have yet to see his best stuff in a consistent manner. Yes, I know we got the win at the RBC Heritage, but he hasn't really been the Fitzy that we know, littering, leaderboards with top 15 and top 20. So I'm going to buy into Matt Fitzpatrick. You can get his rare cards for right around $30 still.
Yeah, his price tag, I was looking at just like ordering it through price, and then his ranking is the one that sticks out the most to me. It's like all the way down there. It's like, what's Fitz doing? And if you think about what he did at the the RBC Heritage, nothing really projecting that he'd play well, but he'd been on vacation there. I think if you want to throw narratives onto Fitz, he's one of those guys that's very narrative driven. Brookline won it there after winning the amateur. So going back to not his hometown or anything, but Europe, Scotland, that kind of thing, I think he might vibe up, if you want to call it that. I don't know how else to explain it, but he loves a good narrative.
He certainly does. And I think getting away maybe a little bit from the Scotty, Rory, Patrick, Victor, Xander, which I'm sure we'll see a ton of, given they're the best 5 players rated in the field. I think going to a Fitzy setting here keeps you very close to optimal, while probably getting away enough from the optimal where serial numbers may not matter, or at least as much. So going down the board, is there anybody else that you like more on this board than Tommy Fleetwood, who also has some great course history here at the Renaissance Club?
Yeah. I'm always going to like Wyndham Clark. I just feel like Wyndham Clark's much more of a savage than Fleetwood. But I love Fleetwood, especially we saw what he got up to in Canada, which is in America. Now we're back in Scotland. Tommy Fleetwood in the USA, not a fan. I think now that he's out of the country, sign me up. I'm going to be all over him the next 2 weeks.
Next 2 weeks, yeah. I think I am as well. Be funny that the guy wins his first PGA Tour event in Scotland. That's kind of like what I'm thinking is going to happen here. He's been so close so many times. As you can see here, about $7.30 for his core cards, which is, on the more expensive side.
Yeah.
31 at the rare, looks like, and about $190 for the elite. So certainly people are liking Tommy Fleetwood as a top 10 player here this week and going forward. Again, sits in that same category as Matt Fitzpatrick. Going to play at the Ryder Cup. Might even be able to pair those two together in a situation like that. So I do like the utility for Fleetwood going forward. He's going to make it likely all the way to the Tour Championship with how far he's playing. Going to need to play to do that as well. So certainly like that. So we got Fleetwood. We got Fitzy. We've got Scotty. We've got Patrick. So I'll open the board wide open to you. Xander Schauffele, defending champion. Does he have to be that fifth guy? Or do you think Victor, who has not played well here at the Renaissance Club, can slide in?
Yeah, I think Victor's now a different breed. You think about these tight lies and things like that we've seen him struggle on in the past. I think that's just like an average chipper now on those kind of things. So Victor, I think, is going to be in prime position. You got to have him in your lineups this week, especially with those other few.
You know what's funny? Before you go on, Victor, I want to just say you bring up a really good point. You say, he's basically an average chipper now, but that's all he has to be one of the best in the world, right? Because he's so good at his ball striking. So before you went on, I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, dude. And we think about what he did at the Open last year. I think that's kind of like what sparked everything, and he went on a nice run since. So love what he's been up to.
Yeah, as you can see on the screen here, his elite prices give him basically the second highest priced golfer in this field, right behind Jon Rahm is number 3. That just goes to show you how much people are loving what's coming out of Victor Hovland right now. No doubt about it. Okay, so you're going Victor over Xander in this optimal setting of a lineup. Is that correct?
I will be doing that, yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. I mean, I'm a big fan of Xander. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to play both of them together. In the optimal lineup projecting, I believe Wyndham Clark might also have a chance of getting in there. You already mentioned Wyndham Clark. I have a problem with Wyndham. And my problem with Wyndham is that he's gone from a really good golfer, especially off the tee and on the green, to a really good golfer everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I had this problem with Jason Kokrak a couple of years ago where he was a good player, made the playoffs every year, and then all of a sudden got hot with the putter and won 2 events, came in the top 10 basically every week. I just wouldn't play him. I'm like, no, he's not this golfer. I don't know him to be that. And I lost quite a bit trying to fade him. I wouldn't say I faded Wyndham Clark, but I definitely faded him at the U.S. Open, and I've then faded him the week after at Travelers. Wells Fargo, I thought, was a great spot for him. I thought that was the capitulation, but he's continued it. So it leads me to believe, and you believe as well, he's going to continue this type of play.
Yeah, he's the only outright I've made a bet on this week so far because it was just a really nice number. But I think if you think about distance and putting, that's like his 2 elite traits. And then he's also an elite iron player when he's playing well. Like the last 2 events, not so much, but he won the US Open without even hitting his irons well. So it just shows you like that area of his game is just, it's just so well-rounded. He can lean on so many different elements of it. And I think he has played well once or twice when he made the Open. So lots to like about old Wyndham. And he's cheap, dude. And he's also got his 4th in FedEx Cup points. So he's going to be well up that leaderboard there come, the Tour Championship. And you're getting some really good discount on him.
You think the U.S. Open solidified his spot in the Ryder Cup?
Yeah. I mean, he's won twice and 2 big events. You can't keep him out of there, right? I mean, he's almost doing it. Is he almost doing it like without even having to qualify? I'm not entirely sure where he's.
Yeah, he's very close. I think he might be 5 or 6. Rickie is right there too.
Yeah.
The reason why I keep bringing up the Ryder Cup is we're only going to get 24 players in it, and with Spieth and Fowler likely 2 of the 24, that means the player pool is only 22 now. Player pool of only 22 and 175K going to the prize pool. That's a pretty good amount of equity to each of those cards that are going to be playing in it. So that's why I bring
and a bunch of Euros, right? We're not going to have a lot of Europeaners in there.
Yep. Oh, that's right. That's true. Like Yannick Paul and a couple of those guys, Victor Perez and the alike. So good point. Sam Burns, last one on this list before we get into a couple of targets not playing in the top 5. As you can see, Sam Burns' prices are at the core level like a third of everybody else above him. At the rare, half. At the elite, basically half. Are you ready to buy into Burnsy, or is it just going the other way, whereas somebody like Matt Fitzpatrick going the right way it's just too hard to buy?
Yeah, I think Burns is definitely going to be one of those. You can really go chalk city with the four guys you roll out and then go Burns. I think that'll really get you different. Whereas Fitz, you might, like you said, it's going to be a little more optimal than what like people would have a Sam Burns in his lineup. But I was looking as well, Jason, and the amount of guys that were gaining tons of strokes putting at the top of the leaderboard, I think like the first 11 were all gaining over like a stroke putting. And I don't know if that's predictive or if just that's what people do when they play wallet tournaments, but Sam Burns can putt well and he can hit his driver very well. So, he's got those two parts, and I don't know. I'm kind of interested in him this week, but maybe not in the open where the field gets a little stronger.
Yeah, it does. Plus, he hasn't really shown us all that much, at least in my opinion, that he can play in majors.
Yeah.
I think really maybe only one top 10 or something similar to that, or something close to that, I should say. So nothing to really write home about. Okay, let's go into our targets here. And you can find these top targets every Friday or Saturday morning, depending on when we get the fields released and depending when I can get to this information. So latest Saturday mornings. And this week, top 5 targets that I have: Sanjay Suri, Adam Scott, Cam Davis, and here's a one, Lucas A. Bear. There's my kind of dart throw of the week. But let's start up at the top with Sanjay and Sahith Theegala. Two guys that I think you and I both like quite a bit, and we're going to get a 3-week run rate out of them. They're going to play the Scottish. They're going to play the Open. Then they've already committed to 3M. And with the way things sit right now, you throw in Tony Finau, who's not playing this week. Those guys are probably the top 3 odds favorites going into that week, along with Ludwig Iberg if he decides to play. So, are you buying both Sanjay and Sahith? Are you buying one of the two? Where do you stand on those two guys, especially with the high utility over the next 3 weeks?
I love Sahith's upside going into his driver, right? That's his biggest issue. And I think maybe around these kind of courses, you can get out of those wispy lies. You can, scramble. And then the short game, I think, is going to be sensational for him. Whereas Sanjay is going to always just he's probably going to play in 1 million tournaments leading up to the Tour Championship by then already anyway. So, yeah, I mean, Sanjay's sitting outside the top 30 in the FedEx Cup points. So he's going to want to play a lot too. Love those two guys. And yeah, I love your top targets here, actually. I really like a lot of them. So we're gonna have a lot of alignment this week.
Yeah, love to hear that. Let's just talk a little bit more in depth for a minute about Sanjay and Sahith. For Sahith, let's look at it this way: those two guys, $250 at the Elite if you were to buy both of them, right?
Yeah.
You go 2 weeks from now after the 2 Opens, we get to the 3M. You're sitting there with a Sanjay card, a Sahith card at the Elite level. Let's say you throw in a Tony Finau rare, which is going to cost you around $40 right now. You've literally got probably the top 3 favorites. You're in for $280, and you've got a great shot at 10K, regardless of who else you put in those lineups. So again, that's for me. If I need players this week, Sanjay and Sahith are the two guys that I'm going to. I think they can give us a top 15 next week, so we can get some utility there too. Maybe top 20, which is still fine, especially if you pair them up with a couple, of top 10s or top 5. So again, I think it's a really good runway. Cam Davis is the first or second now alternate. I should say the second or maybe now first alternate for next week's Open Championship, but a guy that certainly is going to play this week, maybe next week. And I think defending champion at 3M. No, he won the Rocket Mortgage. Still, he won the 3M a couple of years ago. So I'm in for him as well.
Why not? I will say he's out of the 5 guys I think you had listed there, he was my least favorite. He's like C, but still like him. He's so unpredictable. That's my problem with him right now. He's just like kind of splotchy, splatchy, but he loves himself some Midwest golf. So bring him back to close to us and off we go, So we'll see what he can get up to.
So speaking of loving Midwest golf, I'll take it across the Atlantic to talk about our next guy, my dart throw of the week, Lucas Herbert. You can see by his prices why I consider him a dart throw, $1.25 at the core. But here's a guy that on link style courses, especially even at this one, 2 top 5s in the last 4 years here at the Renaissance Club. Put in some good performances at the Open Championship as well. Expect him probably to have to play the 3M and the Wyndham. Seems like a good run rate for Lucas. If we're going to get a return, it's right now. And here's a guy that basically with no form can come up and win. So do you like him as a dart throw? I don't expect you to put him in your optimals, but a guy that if you need a cheap guy to maybe get a return, you could throw into a lineup.
No, I love him. And I think his odds are like 35-1 to win this thing, which is like pretty low, for someone that's cheap in Rainmakers. So I think the market's kind of respecting him at a course like this because that's what he does. He bombs driver and that short game in the wind. He's a specialist in those kind of conditions. So I love what he can get up to the next 2 weeks. And he's streaky. He could easily fit inside the top 10 there.
Yeah, no, he definitely can. The last guy on that target list was Adam Scott, which I think is kind of one of those scenarios where when Scotty plays, you got to just play him. If he's gonna make the cut, he's gonna give you a return with how much he scores, and obviously he's gonna have to play. He wants to play all the way to the Tour Championship every year, so expect him to play this week, next week, and probably one of the last 2 before the playoffs. What's he sit on the FedEx? I don't know if you have that right now.
He's sitting right on that bubble. And I think he's one of the he's got the longest streak, I think, on the PGA Tour. I think like 17 years that he's made it to the Tour Championships. And now that it's gone to 70, he's on stress alert now.
Yeah, he is a little bit on stress alert. He is also opening himself up to really going at some of the reporters, specifically Eamon Lynch. My feeling on that is like, when players start to chirp and maybe talk a little bit more than they're used to doing in the past, it's because they feel confident in their game as well. Obviously, if they're not playing well and chirping, it's going to be like, hey, buddy, who are you? You haven't made a cut in a while. Not the case with Adam Scott. So definitely like him a bit. So, okay, anybody else for the Scottish before we move on to the Barbasol that you think might be worth a look here this week, or maybe a couple of week run rate? Obviously, we already talked about Tommy Fleetwood. So, anybody else?
I mean,
Thomas. I can't do it. It's too variable.
Yeah, no, the JT love it's an ownership leverage thing. I don't think he's a Rainmaker play at all. And we thought we could get some good utility out of him being in the Rocket, and off he goes and has an absolute disastrous week there. So that worked out well for us. But I don't know. I kind of like Nick Taylor for some weird reason. He's not going to give you a lot of consistency, but he's at least shown that he can show up when he does play well and play well. So like when he's in your lineup, he's going to pretty much, the proof is in the pudding there. And then, I don't know, give me your thoughts on some Shane Lowry going into the week, because he's maybe not – it depends. If the wind blows, I'm all in on Shane Lowry. If the wind doesn't, then I'm out. That's the thing. And you want a versatile golfer if you're going to, put him in your profile and have a lot of birdies get made or not, whereas Lowry's kind of like a half and half situation. So I'm curious on your thoughts there.
Yeah, he is. So just comparing the two, we got Nick Taylor coming around $354 at the core, $13 at the rare, somewhere around $70, I would say, at the elite, and about $112 or so for the legendary. Now for Lowry, we've got. Let's see. We've got around $450 for the core, $17 for the rare. 110 we'll call for the elite, and 320 for the legendary. So, okay, I think for me, the next 2 weeks, I would take Shane Lowry over Nick Taylor every single time, right? That we've seen Lowry win an Open Championship. We know that this is his style of golf, coming from Ireland. Nick Taylor having a great season, but maybe the best has passed him. We saw him come out, last week. Really terrible. The week before, that at the U.S. Open was okay, but again, I think the Canadian Open might be the capitulation. However, he's gonna make it all the way to the Tour Championship, almost for sure.
10th in FedEx Cup points.
Yeah, so. I don't think he can get past, just based on there's 4 events left or something like that. Yeah. So if that's the case, and he's gonna make it all the way to the Tour Championship, when the playoffs come and it's no cut fields. I mean, this is your guy. He's going to be able to put up scoring points. So long term, yeah, maybe Nick Taylor for the playoffs because Lowry's not quite all the way there yet. But next couple of weeks, do like Lowry. In terms of our price estimation model, I will say Lowry is the top best value still on the board. I expect them to play 9 of 17 events that are left in the 2023 Rainmaker and PGA Tour season, we'll call it, even though they switch over to next season for the PGA Tour, not for Rainmakers. So 9 of 17, that's pretty good, including the Ryder Cup. That's why I have him as one of the best values. I do like Shane Lowry quite a bit, not going to lie to you. The other guy that I saw as a top value that you and I have tried to play a couple of times, Thomas Dietrich does have good course history here. As I'm typing in Max Homa, Thomas Dietrich kind of shows up instead. So let me pull that one back up on the board. Before we talk about Thomas Dietrich, let's talk about Max Homa a bit. He's coming in at like $145 at the Elite and much cheaper on the other things. Let me pull the other ones here for us. And again, this is part of our price estimator tool, as I talked about, premium feature here at Lucky Trader. $9 for the core, $35 for the rare. I think the best value is at the Elite level, about $145.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think I bought $145 rare Max Homa at some point earlier in the season. So definitely some good value on the Elite side there. And, he's sitting third in the FedEx Cup ranking. So, like, you're still going to get that all the way to the Tour Champs, Yep. So we'll see what he can get up to.
Yep, agreed. Okay, that's going to do it there for the Scottish. I think we gave a plethora of plays. It is it's interesting because it's a half a field, basically, of what we have for Rainmakers cards, plus you throw in Rickie Fowler and Jordan Spieth, and Justin Rose not having cards takes away 3 stars. So interesting field. And now we move on to the Barbasol, where it's kind of the other half of the field, right? The half of the players that we expect to be the bottom end of the field at a field like the Scottish are the top end of the field here at the Barbasol Championship. And we'll spend just a couple of minutes going on here. It's a par 72. The Champions course at Keene Trace is where they play. The average score is going to be below 70, somewhere in the 69.95 range. Average winner score we've got over the last 5 years, 23 under. So another birdie fest. And what I found is the driving accuracy and greens in reg are basically the exact same thing that we just had. So basically look at those plays that played well last week and fire them up again, right?
Well, I mean, after the field we had at the John Deere, they're going to be most of the same people anyway, right? So it's kind of interesting to see these guys make it in here. And there have been some massive doublings in prices for these cheapies, compared to a week or two ago.
Yeah. And I have the top 10 on the board. Now, again, these could change. Some players are opting to play the Scottish instead of the Barbasol. Some are opting to play the Barbasol instead of the Scottish, based on their FedEx Cup standings, and the ability to get into the Open Championship is probably low. For guys like Harry Higgs, Austin Smotherman, Chad Ramey, Andrew Novak, all guys that could have played the Scottish that are instead playing the Barbasol. As you can see here on the top 10 board, we've got Taylor Pendrith leading the way, Kevin Streelman, Lucas Glover, MJ Duffy still waiting on word where he's going to play. Haven't seen it quite yet. As of right now, he's in both fields. I don't know about all that, but we'll take a look at that. I don't know how he can do that unless there's supersonic travel that I don't think as a mid-tier PGA Tour player, MJ Duffy is going to get to do. If I were MJ Duffy, I'd play at the Barbasol, by the way, just to be clear. I'm not his agent, but that's where I would tell him to go. Carl Yuan, Troy Merritt coming on strongly. Patton Kazire, already mentioned Ramey, and Peter Malnati are roughly your top 10. Those are the top 10, but give me a couple of targets outside of them that you might like here this week, and I'll give you a couple of mine, and then we'll wrap it up.
Outside of them, who I do love in them is Andrew Novak. He's one of my favorites.
I was going to say, give me a couple of plays in them. I knew you like Novak, though.
I love Novak, and I love him in a field like this, too. Like a little weaker field, and see what he can get up to. Played kind of nicely last week again, so see what he can get up to. Troy Merritt, had some fun with him on Twitter last week. He's got the yips, so once that's out of the way, he can be playing some good golf again, and he kind of a T29, I think, last week with the yips is, I don't think that's terrible golf. So maybe it's kind of moving its way out of the way there, and we can see what he can get up to. But yeah, who else? Tyler Duncan tends to show up in these random non-elevated events, alternate events. He's one of these guys that kind of just does his thing. And then my favorite, like my top captain, would probably be Kevin Streelman this week.
Yeah, those three guys you could buy. Almost Streelman, is he the one that's like tripled in price? Basically, I assume you've got a couple of those names or doubled.
Yeah, he's tripled in price, but he's also still cheaper than Lucas Glover, still cheaper than Taylor Pendrith. So the increase in price is hectic, but it's not nearly relative maximum to the others that are like $12, $13 for, like Grayson Murray sitting at $11.50 right now in the rares, which is that's like 5 times more than what he was just 1 or 2 weeks ago, which is nuts.
I'm out on Grayson Murray. I'm not going to lie to you. I would be selling. I'd be selling my Grayson Murray shares for Cameron Champ shares. Here's a guy that basically in his short PGA Tour career has shown up out of nowhere to win golf tournaments.
Yes.
Last week, watched him play quite a bit because he was on featured group coverage on Sunday early in the morning. And what I found was his iron play. It looks like he's actually comfortable. And we know he's probably top 5 driver in the world of the golf ball, especially when he's on. And when his putting is moving, at least in the right direction, the guy competes. So I want to be buying Cameron Champ this week. I think this is a field that he could absolutely win at. And I think also based on his status, I don't know that he gets into the playoffs, but he's definitely going to play in the fall swing. He's in that PGA Tour winners category that he'll definitely get into all of those fields. So I think he's going to end up being some of the favorites. He's won twice over the fall swing over his PGA Tour career. So big fan of Cam Champ, putting him with Andrew Novak, putting him with Kevin Streelman. Now, who's maybe a third guy? I'll put him with Taylor Pendrith. He's got good course history here as well. So there's our 4 in an optimal setting. I'm going with, as my number 5 optimal setting, if I've got him, I'm going with Austin Smotherman. I think this guy is pretty close, playing some of the best golf in this field, in this player pool. You can still get him pretty cheap, as you can see, about $4 at the rare, $1 at the core, and about $40 or so at the elite. So agreed with Smotherman, or do you want to go a different way with that number 5 spot?
Yeah, no, I like him. He's sitting inside my top 7 here for this week coming up for the alternates. Don't see a problem with him at all. And we've seen him first round leader so often, right? So he's gonna find himself right in the mix early, and if he can just hang on for dear life for the next 3 days, he's still gonna be, looking pretty.
So anybody that you want to sell that have maybe increased in price like the Kevin Streelman have, like you said, Lucas Glover. I mean, he's had a good 3-week run here. Maybe it's time, I know he's got good course history, but maybe it's a time to cash in on Glover or somebody else in mind.
Yeah, I think Glover's interesting because that run has just happened right after he's gone to the broomstick, so that could easily continue. Yeah. But in what kind of events, is he going to really be performing in these other? I like him at the Wyndham as well, so maybe you kind of keep him there because it's a little shorter golf course. I don't know. I'll have a tough time selling on someone that's kind of peaking like that with the newfound broomstick. So,
but Harry Hicks, you got that maybe you want to sell that has seen any increase in prices a little bit. Yeah. I'm okay selling Harry. You never know what you're going to get with him, and if you can get some value on your NFT there, get rid of the big rig. Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I think that's going to do it for us. Have we covered all the names that you at least wanted to get out there this week? Because again, got to keep our heater going, right?
Yeah, baby. I've put one outright in each one, and Andrew Novak is at the Barbasol. So basically the same number as what I got Wyndham. So we'll see how that goes, and maybe we can hit another winner here on the Rainmakers show.
Yeah, would absolutely love that. So we got the Open Championship next week. Maybe next year we'll get $500,000 in our prize pool for each major. Again, not that I don't like the opportunity to win $10K off of my Cam Champ, Austin Smotherman lineups this week. I would rather have a chance to win $50K off of my Scotty Scheffler and Patrick Cantlay next week. And if suffering a little bit in the Barbasol weeks means I can do that at the majors, I really think it's something they got to do. And hopefully people agree with me there. Again, it's just like the whole golfing world focuses on the majors. I think there should be a little more emphasis on a major championship versus, say, the Travelers. And I love the Travelers, bro. You know me. I'm a New England guy. I would still rather see a little bit more money into the prize pool.
I do have a random question for you though.
Yeah,
if you had, say, let's just go core. If you have $100, how would you split up so that we've got the payouts exactly the same for these two different, events, but the entry fee essentially, if you're starting up right now with $100 that you're just about to go in with, how would you split that going into the Barbasol versus the Genesis Scottish Open?
Oh man, that's such a good question there. I love.
Because we've also got the Barracuda next week, right?
Well, it doesn't have Rainmaker contest anymore because they ended up taking that out because of the scoring structure. You know how it's stable for its scoring. So they're like, we're not going to mess with that. They put the equity into the false swing instead, added the Ryder Cup. So basically it was they traded the Barracuda for the Ryder Cup, which I'm cool
That's fine.
Yeah. It's a really solid question. What I think I would do is I would make what I would consider an optimal lineup at the rare level for the Barbasol, because we're going to get a chance to win 2K with it this week. And I think it's going to, if you make it optimally, Novak, say Champ, say, Smotherman, the guys that we've been talking about, you're probably going to get another 8 chances to win $2,000 with that exact same lineup over the fall swing. So for me, I think that's where I'd start. You can do that for, say, like somewhere around $30 right now, right?
Yeah, $30-$40. Yeah.
I think I would do that. And then I would turn to the Scottish, and I would, again, I'd start at I'd say core, because you can win 2K with that next week at the Open Championship. If we build a lineup that has, 5 of these guys, you get a chance to win 3K. And then the next week at the 3M, you'll get a chance to win 2K again. I'd go Thagala, $8, Sanjay Suri, $7. I would throw in Scotty at this point for $25. So now we're getting close to like $70, and I'd try to fill it in with like a Cam Davis, who we're going to get at the 3M. So now we've got a little bit of leeway where now we can go in and add a Cantlay, a Schauffele, a Victor, who we expect to get high utility from. So I think that's going to give us around $100, get us 2 lineups that we should have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chances to win over $1,000 with it on a 10-to-1 return. So I think that's how I do it. Again, I
like it. Yeah,
I'll put these 5 names that we just said, all together and kind of track that, because I think that's a good entry point for people, is that kind of that $100 level. And thank you for bringing that up, because I am going to be doing a tiered buy-in approach when football starts on kind of best way to allocate and spend your money to kind of get invested in the Rainmakers game without dumping, an entire bankroll into it. So I'll be excited for that. Excited for NFL to come. We are steps away from an optimizer as well. Not going to lie, I sent my player pool over to our devs this week to kind of test run everything. So that means we're getting pretty close.
Let's go.
Really excited.
It's going to be fun, dude, because it does. That's one thing I must say. Sorry, I'm just keep talking, but having to put together like 25 manual lineups, like even the bulk import has really helped a lot. But just for me, like 20, 30 lineups, on a Wednesday night after you've done your DFS, it's like trying to get your captains right, and then sometimes it doesn't go correctly. So that optimizer will be awesome to have it like work out nicely for you.
And in addition, you don't have to worry about, man, should I pick Victor or Patrick? Just let the optimizer do it and hope that it ends up working out. I mean, because I can't tell you how many times this year, I should say, that I've put together what I'd consider an optimal lineup, and I needed like the one other guy we'll just let the optimizer deal with it and go from there. I think that would be the best way. So stay tuned for that. I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe we'll get a PGA one out first. That's the hope. But obviously with NFL coming up and PGA kind of winding down, we are making sure that we get it out for NFL start. So thanks for bringing that up and chatting with me. So, all right, that's going to do it here for us on the Rainmakers Report for the Scottish Open and the Barbasol Championship. Good luck in the streets this week. A ton of prizing going out, plus another $150K on UFC. So $600,000 in total prizing for Rainmakers this week. I love the growth in it. I hope DraftKings continues to support it, and I think that they will. So until next time, everybody, good luck, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.